Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Monday Show. It is the monthly free episode of the GMG sort of like weekly hang that we do where the patrons and I hang out. Basically talk about what we've been working on all week as far as like hobby stuff, the news of everything that's been happening, going on, and what's coming up. So if you are a GMG patron, this happens every single week. And then once a month, at the last Monday of the month, we do the Monday hang. Basically free for everybody, and we all get to hang out. People can ask questions. There is a mailbag for patrons that I take questions from too, and we kind of update people on what's been going on. And yeah, then you get to hear what's coming up at GMG, what I've been doing. So I'm going to say hi to folks in the chat. I hope everybody is having a great week so far, had a great weekend. We got a actual break in the garbage weather, which was fantastic for the whatchamacallit, the month we've had of rain basically here, which was fantastic. I worked on Saturday, where I had my friends Sarah and Ben come down, and we played some Warcrow from Corvus Belli. Two first full big size games of Warcrow, which was great. And then I got to actually play some baseball on the weekend, which was nice because it got all cleared up, and I played in the Hamilton Rockers League, which is a beer league baseball association of musicians who are all my age, who are very kind and take newcomers to throw a ball around, and I engage in a little bit of baseball, a little bit of softball, which was a very good weekend. And although many parts of me are currently broken, I was able to hit a few dingers and run the bases, and I had a really good time. Get some sun, be outside. Sarah in the chat, cool guys here. Chris Gibson's here. As we are starting on time today, my patrons may be slow showing up because they're used to me being late. As normally I'm doing we have a meal program at the kids' school, which we do every Monday, and we didn't have it last week, which was why I was but last week was a national holiday, so that's why I wasn't here. But then this week we actually were on time and fed about 210 kids, which is why I'm usually late to these things, but I didn't go to the gym today, as I was out all day yesterday. We got Volcano here. We've got Jin Callens here. Bad Internet Friends Podcast is here. And we'll be hanging out all day for the next hour and taking questions and stuff. So yeah, I got to play some Warcraft. I figured I would show you guys. That's Ben painting up his wonderful Northern Tribes army. You can see here he's got the limited edition polar bear all painted up from the initial release, which is very cool, like sort of like monster hero. You can take him by himself, or he can be taken as like a leader unit for this unit of Orc Warriors, and they're great models. Such wonderful models. He did a great job painting them too. And he's got the cat elves, clearly it's Corvus Belli, so they're clearly the Avatar cat people, you know what I mean? Except the whatchamacallit, the bad guys, they're not really bad guys, they're mostly good guys. Why is this zooming in like this? Flying around. Oh, it's because I've got my Google thing set to drag around. Then this is my hegemony with my blind guy eyes. I whipped out the remaining units I hadn't painted from the starter set, so I've got some Bucklemen up front here, but I've got the Lady Telia and the dwarves, who are the dwarf pioneers, painted up now as well. I have some aggressors in the back, they're all painted up, and some bulwarks, which are the big dudes with the spears and shields. Wonderful miniatures. I've got the new fencing lady too. What else have I got? I think that's it. That's all I painted up. But it's basically the rest of the hegemony painted up from the sort of like current initial offering of it. Well, they're fun to paint. Same color scheme. I just whipped them up. I painted up, or I assembled and primed the remaining stuff too that I hadn't finished yet. So I have the other elf wizard, the big stabby one, the Warcrow Adventures wizard, all ready to rock and roll, and then also the last unit, which is the arquebusiers, which is the guys with pavises and arquebuses that I have yet to paint, that I'll have ready for the next game as well. I just want to finish off this army while I have all the paints and stuff out. I find I lose steam if I have a project and it's like 90% done and there's like 6 models left to do, I never get to them. There's like 6 unfinished miniatures from a project that just kind of sit on a shelf and I'm like, it's good enough. I did them all. Yeah, and then didn't like I never actually get to them and finish them. Master Viper joined in, Dan Fox here, the CRT Matt's here, and Kurt L is here too. Good morning, everybody. Hope you guys are having a great start to your week. And Master Viper says some confrontation vibes on those. That's very much what if you haven't checked out Warcrow, that's very much what they're going for. They're going for that Paul Bonner early 2000s French fantasy style. So like the elf bad guys, and that's actually in my upcoming what I'm working on next thing. I want to do the bad guy army for this, the evil undead, because I have the Winds of the North starter set, and I also have all of the orc stuff, the orc and cat people stuff. But Ben's painting all that, and I want to paint an army that he's currently working on. So I actually just assembled and primed, and you can see here behind me on the desk all of the stuff from the I have the card pack with the one special character elf bad guy. But this is the army you get in the Warcrow Adventures box. It's a literal army. You get 2 big monsters, like 6 characters, 4 or 5 units. And as long as you don't mind, like the thing is the units aren't very big. Your biggest unit count's 4 models. So I don't really mind the pose repetition. I've got 2 units of the zombies who are in a single pose. That's kind of the most repeated model count in the whole thing. And all the characters are unique. A couple of the like 2-man units are identical, but I don't really mind. So I'm just gonna paint this up because it's an instant army and it's huge. It's like maybe it's a 250 point game. It's maybe 400 points for the miniatures. So you have like a huge selection of models to paint up. And I'm gonna do this in like that Grimdark 28, like just lots. Like I'll use a common undercoat for everything, and then just start slapping washes on it and making it all gribbly and gross. And I'll use some brighter colors for the elves. If you look on the left, some of the elves, these guys right here, they're kind of the spirit of Eltharion. They're like ghost elves. And the idea is this army, the undead army in Warcrow, are basically an elf empire that's fallen, and they've had to use like necromancy to basically like maintain their power. And so the elf wizards are like weird monsters, and they reanimate the human undead or the human bad guy like soldiers to make them fight. So the one dude in the black base, he comes in here and they sell a card pack so that you have basically all the cards for the Warcrow or the main like Warcrow game, and you can just use the adventures game. So you kind of get 2 games in one, which I thought was cool. It acts as sort of like a pseudo like battle force for the game. And then you just buy the card pack. Although the cards are free online, you can just print them too if you want. But the card pack comes with an extra miniature, like a big bad leader dude. So, yeah, really happy with that. And like they're indestructible, right? Because they're board game plastic and the detail's nice. So I'm gonna put some like I want to put some sand on the bases for these guys first. You can see there's a thing of glue and sand back there. I was just sanding the bases for this. This is the last 6 of the models I haven't got done for the hegemony. So it's the Arquebus guys. And then the elf wizard from Warcrow, and then this is the special character. Like he's actually like a dueling master. He's like a Jedi, and his sword's making this like big energy swing around him. But he's technically a wizard because when he fights you, it's like he like spins around like in a circle with a lightsaber and kills everything around him. So he's super dangerous. But every time he does it, he absorbs like the chaos taint in this game that can kill you. But I figured if I get 2 armies finished, because this game I kind of picked like the right spot to hit it, which I think is important, where there's 3 armies completely done. So that Warcrow Adventures box is 1, the undead army, and then the hegemony and the northern tribes have enough stuff out now where you can actually make some meaningful unit selections. You know what I mean? Like you're not just playing with the same stuff all the time. And I kind of waited for it to build up until that point after I got the starter set, and now Ben and I are like jumping in and playing full games. We played 2 full games over the Saturday, and I really enjoyed it. It's kind of Star Wars Legion-y or Marvel Crisis Protocol-y with the dice and the trigger system, the switch system. I would say it's kind of Aristei, but a lot of people didn't play Aristei. Aristei was the sports game that Corvus Belli made, and the dice mechanic comes from that game. But it has like a scaling dice system where it's like weak to strong. So like yellow, orange, red. Red's the strongest dice. Yellow is the weakest dice. Those are the attack dice. And then it's blue, green, black, which is the defense dice. And they just stack, but then there's a switch system for activating your triggers. So it weirdly plays a little like Confrontation, but it doesn't feel as dense because everything's just on a card in front of you. It has a neat like unit attachment system where like if you attach a character, so like a character card is attached. If you attach it to a unit, then there's a bottom half of the character card that shows how it interacts when it's on a unit. So the top half is when it's by itself. The bottom half is when you use slots unit, what it adds to the unit. So there's a neat like character attachment thing as well. And the scenarios were good. They were fine. It has a built-in like event system trigger where there's like a time track for how many activations you get. They handle like activation count really well. You get 5 activations in the average scenario per turn, but at the end, any units that didn't get activated get to make a free move. So there's like a free like reposition basically that everyone gets to do. So you can't swamp people with activations. So there's some clever game design in here. I really enjoyed playing it. Mostly the models are really cool and it's the right like size of game to keep me interested. And then like, I love these bad guys. They're just weird and creepy enough that I think I'll have fun quick painting them. And because my eyes I'm going blind, it'll be nice to paint with washes and airbrushes and stuff like that in order to get it all done. Oh, thanks, Andrew B. So Andrew's way better at promoting than I am. Is always doing this. This is why Andrew owns an actual business and I own this business. Where the only employee whose job is at risk ever is mine. So your team out says, I just picked up the starter for Warcrow. Awesome. Stin Callant says, I'm waiting for the release of the Cavalry models. Yeah, they're this wave, I think. So I think this month or next month, the Cavalry comes out. The Black, I think they're Black Angels is what they're called. Something Angels. Not Dark Angels. Something Angels for the Hegemony. I'm excited to paint those up. Ryan Dunphy's here. Fantastic. Terrier Hale's here. Jamie Whiteside's here. Wolf's Friend 42's here. Donald Cowie's here. And that's it. I think I said hi to everybody. Dan Fox here. I think I said hi to everybody in the chat. I'm trying to catch you guys as you come through. So we're going to take some questions from the mailbag. We're going to go talk a little bit about what's to come up later on in the week. I got a few other things I'm working on here, sprues and stuff I'll show you guys. But let's get to the main topic I want to talk about today, which is in the title card. Because the title card, sometimes I get distracted and I forget to talk about the thing I was going to talk about. I want to talk about this review I did over the weekend. Because a lot of you guys didn't catch it, which is weird for a Games Workshop review. I'm noticing, obviously, most of you who are here who watch the stuff on this channel, you guys are watching it for like the indie game stuff. But this video right here, the 2025-2026 mission pack from Games Workshop, I actually think is pretty important. It's a video that not a lot of you guys watched. I think it only got like 814 views over the weekend, which is very low for a GW video. Like by comparison, the Space Wolf Codex one got like 3,000 views. But I really wanted to talk about it, because Games Workshop, of course, has been getting younger. And what I mean by that is that they have been hiring a new generation of employees because they've been growing rapidly, right? In the last 10 years, they've grown, since I was there, they've grown exponentially, almost doubled their headcount. And that also means their design team's almost doubled. They got a lot of remote staff working from home, working from various places in the world. And almost by, probably not intentionally, but just by virtue of hiring people from younger generations, they're importing a lot of ideas about game design and a lot of ideas about what gaming is from a lot of younger people, I think. And what's really interesting about that is the order in which they imported these ideas. Because the first thing they kind of imported from the video game industry was the idea of seasonal content. You've seen in the last 10 years, we used to have a 4 to 5 year edition stretch, right? 4 to 5 years, you'd have an edition. Very, very, very often, especially in Warhammer 40,000, you would carry your codex over from edition to edition. So you weren't as often buying books. And in the last few years, they have really switched to a more seasonal, almost subscription. It's hobby as a subscription kind of a service where you're very often rebuying your core rulebook. You're very often rebuying your codexes. You're very often rebuying even like your mission packs and your ways to play. And that's why this got into my head about the mission pack, because that was one of the first things they imported from video games and digital gaming culture is like subscription services. And that goes back as far as like World of Warcraft, Ultima Online. It's very much the idea of, well, if they bought something once, and this was very important in digital gaming, right? Because things got pirated too. If you got the game for free, or you got it once, how do you keep people paying money into your ecosystem so you can keep making games? Because getting paid once isn't really a way to run a business without having to make something constantly, right? So either making a new thing all the time, or you're getting them to resubscribe to the thing you already made. And I don't love that. I don't love that that's happened. I don't love that that's a way that they've gone to making money, because the way the workshop used to do that was by making new model kits. So first things first, that they imported that. Then they imported the idea of game balance. They kind of moved away from the idea of their games being about these tiny little people on a table telling a story, and they moved towards more and more battlefield information being like an overlay, where you now have things like scoring zone circles, you have things like terrain map layouts, which is a very it's a very Call of Duty online gameplay, rinse and repeat sort of like way of doing game design, where it feels more like a paintball match that does a little movie happening in front of you with the toy soldiers. So those are kind of the first two lessons they imported. And I don't think they did that consciously. I think they did that because their game designers started to overlay their expectations of what gaming is into it. And some of that was very exciting from them as a business point of view, especially the subscription-based stuff and the seasonal content, where they would just sell you a new iPod every 3 years, right? So I didn't love that. But, and this is where I have my caveat, this review in particular, this new mission pack for Warhammer 40,000, it's kind of an admission of that not working out forever. Because they seem to have brought in something else, and that is, and this is if you've ever done any sort of like research or sort of like reading up on game design in the digital world, one of the things that gameplay designers in video games especially are very concerned with is the loop. So there's a reason why Super Mario levels are only so long. There's a reason why some of the most successful titles in video games of all time are things that you can repeat over short amounts of time, right? It's a reason why Counter-Strike was so like popular in the early days of like Steam and the Source Engine, because you had a loop that was it's the gameplay loop in Warhammer is build, paint, play, build, paint, play, build, paint, play. You build miniatures, you paint them, you play games with them. And some people skip steps in that loop, but you typically come back to zero. You build, paint, play, build, paint, play. Now you can circumvent all of that with money and just play if you want. Money, but that's kind of neither here nor there, because money cures everything. As we all know, money can cure AIDS. Is the South Park joke, right? So the idea that that a gameplay loop is important in video game design is because you're trying to hold the player's attention and keep them playing the game over and over again. It's why Tetris is so popular, right? It's why games like Pac-Man were so popular, because there's a way to actually finish and clear the board, and it only lasts a certain amount of time, and it's really satisfying. It hits you with the dopamine, or it hits you with whatever it's cortisol if you lose, and then you come back to the beginning and you loop again. Workshop had become very unconcerned about their gameplay loop. And I think I don't think I'm saying anything out of school when I say that Warhammer 40,000, and if we talk about Warhammer, we're really talking about Warhammer 40,000, because we're talking about the biggest segment of the customer base, the biggest war game on earth, played by the most people, the most often, over 1 million games played last year by over 1 million people, if you just take like the Best Coast pairings thing. So the fact is that the gameplay loop in their game had been pushed to a very high shelf. The standard game size of 2,000 point games required thousands of dollars of investment. So that again just puts that loop very slow. So if you want to play the standard game, you have to buy, build, and paint 2,000 points. It's a really big army, and it's a lot of dollar dues. And then the game itself takes fucking forever. It takes like 4 hours to play a game if you're playing it casually. If you're like rushing to complete a game at a tournament, they still have like 3-hour rounds, which is madness. I don't want to do anything for 3 hours. Nothing. There's nothing on earth I want to do for more than 3 hours. So maybe sleep, right? I don't want to do anything for that long. And so the interesting thing about this card pack is where the last two ones, the Leviathan one, the Pariah Nexus one, were basically just in support of those 2,000 point games. You could play at other game sizes, but they weren't super compatible with the experience. This one chops the deployment and scenario cards into 3 sections. One of them is specifically just for incursion level games at 1,000 points, having the game size, and they're really pushing to legitimize that as a real way to play. The other one is playing asymmetrical games, so like attacker defender missions, last stands, ways that aren't a balanced paintball match. And I was really surprised, because this is This is an acknowledgement that the gameplay loop matters. Because the first two things they took from video games, like that gaming is a subscription business model, right? Where you can have a seasonal like content and push things in a cycle. And then the second sort of like sterility of like all that matters is the perfect game. If you get the most balanced game on earth, then you've won, and you know the money will just turn on and come falling down. This is like a repudiation of that. So this is a real kind of bellwether. And that experience matters. Sorry, that was the last one because I forgot to mention that too. They imported one of the spearhead mechanics, the catch-up mechanic. It's called Challenger Cards, and Spearhead it's funny because Spearhead is very much designed by a game designer that came from the video game world, who's the head of their department now, and the head of the AOS department, and brought, I think, the missing things from that understanding of what gaming currently is in like the modern zeitgeist, and imported them in. And they're picking things out of Spearhead and now putting them in 40K. And the Challenger mechanic in particular it's the Mario Kart mechanic of the further back you are in Mario Kart, the more powerful the power-ups you get, right? It's a rubber band mechanic. It's designed to try and put a downforce on NPs, on negative play experiences. And those two things, the fact that they are trying to speed up the gameplay loop and make it more accessible, because it's very inaccessible currently, with like the right way to play Warhammer 40,000 is 2,000 point games at the tournament level, and just like only leaving a third of that in the mission deck, and then putting in a catch-up mechanic with the Challenger cards. There's clearly been like a conversation that's like, no, we need to do something about the loop and we need to do something about the experience, because it's not what we want it to be, and it's vocally not you know the thing that we're trying to champion. I thought that was really interesting. So I think if you get a chance, I talk a little bit more about it in that review, because I'm breaking down the cards and stuff too. Go watch that, because it's kind of a turning point where I feel it's a big boat. Games Workshop it takes a big while to turn. You got to turn a big boat. It only turns slowly. But this, if you want my 2025 predictions, we're going to see more stuff like this. And this is kind of like a line in the sand demarking between the last 10 years chase at the beginning of 8th edition, where it was like, no, it's all Unbound and it's all this way, where it slowly put more guardrails back on the game. And it became very much just the chase of like, what is the most balanced way to play, pickup games, to, it's Warhammer. You need to be able to play it, with like one or two boxes, and play it in a satisfying way, and play it like in weird and wacky ways too, because the experience matters in different ways than just who won and who lost. So yeah, there's my little thesis for this one. So talk about it in the chat. I'll take some questions about it if you want to. But I do think this one, it's funny because it's such a sterile topic, a mission deck for Warhammer 40,000. I think a lot of people missed it. And I think this is one of those products that comes out every once in a while from Games Workshop, where you start to see the boat turn. And it's worth you guys, if you're just interested in even if you don't like Warhammer and Warhammer 40,000, it's interesting industry-wise. That's why I pay attention to this stuff. It's interesting industry-wise, and it actually made me, as a guy I played maybe 5 games of 40K in 10th edition, and the edition's about to change like next year. I lost interest in it almost immediately, like after the Leviathan and the Pariah Nexus deck. I don't think I played any games of the Pariah Nexus one. I was immediately interested again. Between that and the Battle Forces, the curated boxes of products, where I'm like, yeah, that's an army. Cool, I can play with that. That's perfect. Like this is like almost 1,000 points. It's like 800 or 900 points per one of these boxes. I was interested, like my interest went from like this to this. I was like, I'll play some 40K again. It only takes about 90 minutes to play. And then I played a game on Saturday too, if you want to see the cards getting used. Mitch and I played a game with my Ultramarines against his Mechanicus. And we had a great time. And it took like 90 minutes to play. It felt like playing Warhammer 40,000 in like 2006, not playing Warhammer 40,000 in 2022 or 2023, which was nice. So yeah, I think this is an interesting one to just pay attention to if you're just interested in the industry, because there are a lot of people chase Games Workshop in the wrong direction for like what they're doing, and it'll be interesting to see this boat start to turn, if it keeps turning, for one thing, and then the direction and the ways in which that affects like the rest of the culture. So let's go to the chat and see what some people are talking about. And the first one was Dan Buck, a new iPod. You are old, Ash. Not as old as I am, but you're still old. Yeah. That's funny. I should have said iPad maybe. Do people even use tablets anymore? I don't know. My kids still use tablets. Buy a new iPad for your kid, because they threw the last one down the stairs. Dan Fox says, I'm actually interested in a 40k card back. Well, it sold out immediately, which is very interesting. And then Don Covey says, honestly, I had to search your video as it did not come up on my YouTube front page feed. So I've noticed, I've always been really low in the algorithm for Games Workshop shit. But I'm especially low in the algorithm now because I don't talk about it often enough. When I post 7 videos a week and like 2 of them are about Games Workshop shit and the rest of them are like random, indie games and stuff like that. I don't think the algorithm knows what to do with me because there isn't a big enough bucket to put what I represent into. And there's a million people that do Warhammer and Warhammer 40k stuff. So even if they have like a tenth as many subscribers as I do, I think I'm way down in the Warhammer algorithm. And so if I review Warhammer products, they just don't get seen. Whereas like the Burrows and Badgers review from Osprey had like 7,000 views. You know what I mean? Like, it's just really funny that like a 40k thing it's a tenth of views that like an indie game about badgers fighting in the woods gets. That's just the way the internet works. If I'm not willing to yell bad things about everything that is mainstream, then I don't make any money. Gizmo Math Boy says, the money hose method solves problems for good or for bad. It sure does. And Alexander Segura says, the new Space Wolves release, I think, shows from a model focus works. Just make new models and worry less about the paper of the game. Yeah, I would agree. And I think they did a good job making new models too. I was really surprised. I honestly thought that the box had just like intercessor boxes in it with like I didn't really think about it. Because the last 2 times they've done this with like the Blood Angels and the Dark Angels, it's just an intercessor box with like an accessory sprue. Those were completely new sprues of Blood Claws and Grey Hunters. And I was like, Jesus, for real? Like it feels like that's a lot of frames for, just these 2 squads. And then I realized like, no, they don't care, man. They can just pump out plastic forever. This is Modern Workshop we're talking about. Making a plastic frame doesn't really matter. They can make as many as they want. And I think they've stopped worrying about shelf space a little bit, if that makes sense. Like they'll just white box it and stick it all in the warehouse, and not worry about it anymore. So who knows? Eve Blair Skirmish says, I only buy even numbered editions now for my sanity. I mean, then you're not buying the next one because we're coming up on 11. This is 10 right now. So I guess you bought this one. And then Terry Harlow says, the gameplay loop became buy models, paint models. Notice the points have changed for everything and tweaks. So those models weren't enough, and so on and so on. I mean, and it's funny because when I say other companies chase Games Workshop in the wrong direction, that was literally what killed Owen and my interest. Like I played more A Song of Ice and Fire in 2018, 2019 than almost any other game. But then we reached a point where like Owen and I were playing games and they were going to come out the same week. And like the rules were changing for things on a weekly basis. And our games were like out of date. And like we had to paint models. They're just illegal. You know what I mean? Like stuff just wasn't working. And I was like, fuck, it's too fast. You don't need to do this often. Like give it a year. Give it a year in between changes. Let things be good for a year. And then Gunther says, game length is why I play Warcry. Even kill team takes forever if you don't buy the rules for your teams, or you don't know the rules for teams because you got to determine being able to shoot at a target. Yeah, Warcry is definitely the fastest paced of all the Warhammer games, except for maybe Underworlds, but Underworlds seems to be fridged, if that makes sense right now. They kind of dropped everything at the beginning, and then they're just like, here we go. We got Warcry. Here's a new warband every like 6 months. And Ryan W says there's a reason why most movies are only between 1.5 and 2 hours. Yeah. I mean, that's just like entertainment 101. No one's attention can be held by stuff for more than that length typically. So I think it's just a great example of like, no, eventually we have to admit that this is just taking too long. Evil Bear says Blackout and Lunar are great for game length and size. Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why, if you guys weren't here at the beginning, I've been working on War Crow, which is the fantasy skirmish game from Corvus Belli, which I've really been enjoying lately. And I just played a game with Ben, and we're able to get some new guys painted here too. I just got some of my new stuff painted for my hegemony. So I painted up those aggressors in the back there. I painted up what else did I paint? I painted up the bulwarks, which are those big guys with the spears. Those cool looking guys. And then I painted up the duelist lady. I painted up the pioneers and Lady Telia, who are on the right there. Wonderful miniatures. And yeah, had a great time painting them. And I just finished painting up or building another unit basically the remaining stuff. This is what's currently available for Warcrow for the hegemony. So I've got this like last 6 models, which is a 4-man unit of the gun guys, arquebusiers, and the 2 characters. So this one's from the board game. So if you have Warcrow Adventures, that one's from that. And then this is the last kind of like Jedi sword fighter guy, wizard dude. I don't remember any of their names at the moment. Who will get painted up in the same sort of teal and gold. If you want to know what I did for this paint scheme, I stole my paint scheme from my Sons of Horus. So that's literally just my Sons of Horus paint scheme, put on a bunch of fancy miniatures. When I'm going blind, because I painted them like this. I painted them like over my glasses. This is my new trick right now because I don't have my bifocals yet. So like I'll look at the miniatures over my glasses, then I'll look down at my paint palette, and then I'll look at my miniatures, and I'll look down at my paint palette. I went with the paint scheme I could do basically in my sleep. So that's the dark Sons of Horus green, the light Sons of Horus, no, that's Sotek green over top of it as like a highlight. I think that's dwarf bronze or whatever dwarf bronze called now, like Warplock copper, and then the Liberator gold as like an edge trim. And my trick for doing reds is that's actually, I think it's a Vallejo red, like red brown, and then I actually blend in tanned flesh. Or whatever, Bugman's Glow is what it's called now, tan flesh. I blend that into my reds. So my reds are actually like a flesh tone I used to highlight it with, and it gives you that nice kind of like deep, rich, like burgundy. And then I washed it all. It's scale 75 black gold, I think, for the steel, and then Rune Fang steel for a highlight, and then just all the flesh tones and like little bits and pieces all painted up. But yeah, that's a whole thing. See what else is going on in the chat. Peter Magro says, GM have a very strong brand and IPs. I'm surprised they've not done more with it coming to the music industry. I mean, they used to. They had their own record label back in the day. Evil Blair Skirmish says, GW is a huge ship, easy to spot, but it's near hard to steer in ultra course. Yeah, I mean, especially, so, and if for a little like inside baseball on that, the reason for that is you're typically developing at least a year out, right? So if your products are done, completed, developed, boxed, art's done, ship it from China, you need to be developing a year out to make sure right now in this like economy in this world that you're basically surviving all the changes that could happen. So you're ordering packaging for next year's models this year. And that means when it comes to what we call steering, it's like changing course. You have to have your development for that stuff done. You have to have your codex writing for that stuff done. So when people complain about things like codex creep, or like the first couple codexes aren't done like as well as later codexes and like game design, it's because the first 3 codexes that get released are usually the ones that were printed alongside the core rulebook for a new edition. And that means they have not been in the wild. The degenerates in the hobby community have not broken them as badly as they can be broken yet. And so there's been no chance to be like, well, what the fuck is this edition even? Because I don't care how big your playtest team is. I don't care how big your design team is. Like us assholes out in the wild, once we buy and get our hands on something, we will ruin every game where there's a binary win-loss condition in like a month. It takes like a month to break no matter what it is. And it's funny because the video game, again, this is like a video game industry thing, an import thing. I think there was a thing where they just didn't, there was a thing in the video game industry where they were just releasing games that were buggy, being like, they'll break anyway, who cares? I think we kind of imported that into tabletop for a while, being like, the first few codexes, the first few army books don't matter because it's going to break anyway. The assholes are all going to break them. So fuck it. Just ship it the way it is. And it's like, man, those should be the most important ones. Those should be the ones where whatever you learned from the last edition should be the thing that you're applying the most to this edition so far, because damn, it's all blown out. What else we got? Andrew says, do you think that sub 1,000-point games of 40k using new mission deck could replace Kill Team for Summermost? Probably not, because it's still very like standing in circles and pushing buttons. I think there's still a place for a comp patrol level of game. They just need to figure out how the fuck to do it. It needs to be on a small table. Like it works so well for Spearhead. There has to be, in the brain trust of GW, they have to be able to take that intent of design. Like, don't just take Spearhead, because it won't work. But there has to be a way of getting that intent and design over to 40k and making it work the way that it needs to for like a game, for a Spearhead style game. I just hope it'll work. Bryce says, I'm tired of the pre-order scarcity BS from GW. I just want to be able to get the last mission deck due to it, and probably won't be able to get this one. Yeah. I mean, yeah. If it's something like, there used to be a thing at Games Workshop where they had what they called a core product line. And a core product line was something that they would sell, especially to like independent retailers, that was guaranteed to always be in stock. And so they just intentionally make too much of it. And it led to some problems where like once the digital era started, like rule books used to be core products. Rule books were getting so pirated that like they print too many rule books and just waste a ton of money basically getting rid of them when the edition changed. There should still be things that are core products, especially a core like accessory, like a mission deck. Now, I will say, Workshop is not the only company to do this. I think we played 2 editions of Infinity where we didn't have the mission deck for Infinity, like to the point where like my buddy Spud and I, who were running events back then, Spud just like graphic designed his own deck, and to get around the fact that we couldn't sell them, he just would include it in the ticket cost for events we ran, and everybody that attended the event got a free deck. And if they already had one, it was like, give it to one of your friends so that more of these decks are out here so more people can play Infinity. And there was what was called, you are a certain type of Canadian Infinity gamer if you have an N3 Spud deck, we used to call them. But that deck lasted from N3 and N4, and for like the last 3 or 4 years it was N2 and N3 it lasted. And the last 3 or 4 years of N3, like you just couldn't buy those decks. Chase says, I have a Spud deck. There we go. Exactly. If you are a certain generation, you're a certain pedigree of Infinity gamer in Canada if you have a Spud deck. Josh Schmidt says, I just build and paint too damn slow for Games Workshop. Andrew B says, big same. I think, again, that's the loop problem, right? If you can't get to the satisfaction of putting your little guys down on the table and finishing your game, and that's what I've always said. That's why I like Spearhead so much. It's why I like Kill Team so much. It's why I was such a huge fan of Infinity. Like, I've always been a huge fan of Infinity. It's why I loved Confrontation. It's why I've really enjoyed, like, this, again, so much, right? Like, Warcrow, like, that's an army for Warcrow. And counted at, what is it, 10 is 21 models. So 21 models, and that's the full-size game. And that's like a relatively big model count army. Like when the Undead army that I'm doing, like that right there that I just showed you, that's like 400 models. And I think the list I wrote for it, for like my opening list, doesn't have either of the 2 big guys in the back in it. It's like 4 individual characters and I think it's 15 miniatures. Because some of them come back to life, like the husks and stuff can come back when they die. So like it's not that many guys, and it kind of revolves around the heroes. But it's got some heavy hitters. It's got the big Chaos Knight looking guys in it. And yeah, like 15, that's an Infinity army, typically 15 to 20 miniatures. Like they're keeping inside the lines of like what is fun to build and paint. And then if you swap a model in and out, does it make the army feel meaningfully different? That's always been a big selling point for Infinity for me, is if I go and paint 1 miniature in Infinity or 2 miniatures in Infinity, it can have like a manifest difference in my army composition and make the army feel totally different, give me a totally different experience in the game. And so I do think that like gameplay loop thing really matters. It's like paint different players in Blood Bowl. Like there is like and Workshop knows this, but their design teams are also siloed that it feels like the information isn't really permeating. And that's why I was so excited about this deck, because it like the Spearhead mechanics of Rubber Band Elastic catch-up stuff appearing in 40K means that there's some doors or windows, at least in those silos, opening and people sharing across the design sphere different priorities. So that was really cool. Terry Harlow says, only GW game I play these days is Blood Bowl, and it's the board game. I mean, I just mentioned Blood Bowl. I think that's one of the ones where they know exactly what that game is. And if I was to pick a Games Workshop game, and I think actually Disgruntled Lork, which is Mike, he's in the chat right now too. If I was to pick his brain on this and get his opinion, he'd probably agree with me. It is the one where Workshop clearly knows the audience and customer for that game. And yes, there'll be outliers that don't like it and complain about rules changes and stuff like that. But like, they get the spirit of what that game is. And they've been making models in the last like 5 years and doing teams in the last 5 years in the spirit of what that game is. And the gameplay plays like Blood Bowl. Is it as clinical as it used to be? I think it's moved away from Competition Rule 6, which is kind of the core foundation of like the very kind of like, you know, precise tactical Blood Bowl. But it's brought back some of kind of the whimsy and the craziness and the fun in a way where obviously the people that write that game right now are big fans of the game. And yeah, and then Mike agrees. We just look at the art style they went with in 2020. Exactly. Yeah, they've understood the assignment in like a manifest way that I think is really important. So we're actually 40 minutes in, man. I can talk, can't I? So let's jump in and take some questions from the mailbag here, and see what the patrons are talking about and asking today, because I'm sure they've got something they want to know. And then we'll talk about what's coming up, and then we're done. Man, time flies on Mondays. It's just one of those things. It's just one of those days. I opened this last on May 16th of 2025. And the patrons are so good about curating this. They always put a line where I forget to erase things and be like, this is it. Chris Gibson says, 1980s Dark Tower photo below. What? He found a picture of Dark Tower. Okay, so I'll open this so you guys can see it. We were looking for this game last week. Oh my God. So if you guys haven't seen Dark Tower, this is a bananas. Hang on. I have to give context. I have to give context for this board game. This is one of the original video game board games. Which is to say that like it used it's here. I found it on Noble Knight so you guys can see it. Oh, this is bonkers. I love you guys so much. The fact that you guys get the assignment when I ask these questions. So this game it's massive for one thing. A fantasy adventure born of electronic. Why won't you open? Just open. I won't do it. Anyway, it's from 1981. It's a Milton Bradley game. It's around the same era of Hero Quest. There's got to be a better picture of this I can show you guys. Images. Come on, Google. Show me something good. Here we go. Yeah, look at this thing. Oh my God, somebody painted it up. No, that's not it. Just open the damn thing. Oh, there's a polygon picture. Here we go. The Wikipedia. Of course the Wikipedia had something. Open image in new tab. Here we go. Yeah, look at this thing. I guess they've remade it. So this is the Polygon reviewed the new one, but the original one looked like this. No, not like that. Oh my God. You can tell I'm so good at this. Show me an actual picture of this. Here we go. No. I love doing this. I love when the mailbag just gives me on like a dithering in a hole. Here we go. So that central Dark Tower was like a talking computer, and you had to move from the external rings inside. And it was like a procedurally generated adventure, and there's different character types, different classes. And man, if you can get one of these working, that's amazing. And it looks like someone's gotten one of these working in the mailbag. But if you were interested in it, it was like, unless you want to clean up an old one, it was recently remade. You can see here, and Polygon just did a review of it, which I think is interesting. But yeah, that's a very cool Dark Tower in the middle. Anyway, 81, like think about how old that is. That's a 44-year-old game. As I threatened a month ago, I got my old Dark Tower game out of the garage and I gave it some love, cleaned the motor brushes, and played a game with my 10-year-old. He says he enjoyed it and we'll play it again. That's so friggin' cool. I love that so much. What a great throwback. What a great thing to be part of this community and get to see this shit. That's amazing. Jack Soldier says, hey, Ash, I recently picked up the Cursed City box. I noticed some of the people have had issues with gaps in the minis where the push fit pieces don't quite come together flush. I was wondering if you had this issue with yours and if you had any tips. Cheers. So what that actually is, in my experience, is that they're actually fitted together too perfectly. Plastics can sometimes expand. And there's usually a little bit of give in between the two peg and hole pieces. If they've expanded slightly, that give's gone away, and it's basically become almost too perfect to fit. And you're getting air trapped in there as it goes in, which is slowly causing it to go in and then push itself back out. Because what you've done is when you've pushed it all the way flat, you've compressed the air trapped in between the two pieces of plastic, and then that slowly slid it, but like it's gone against the friction of you pushing it in and slowly pushed it back up and made a gap. Best thing to do is either even just shaving like one flat line down on the peg just gives the air somewhere to escape. So if it is perfectly fitted, you can get it in there, or just sand the sand the peg down a little bit. I found one good like notch basically where you like flatten the log, like if it's like a tube, just flatten on one side, is enough to let the air out so it'll go in properly. Because usually they don't expand enough that they don't still fit, because the amount of give like that they've given in the fitting is usually enough to like counteract it. It's more just that the last sort of couple millimeters of it pushing in, you've compressed some air and that's pushing it back out. So yeah, that's what I'd recommend, is just shave it down a little bit. And if you can't, even just clipping it shorter will create more space for it to go in. So either clip off like the last quarter of the peg if you can, or just put a slot on it and it should be fine either way. And then Gizmo Bath Boy says, I think I found a copy of Crimson Skies rules to send to you. How would I get that to you? Send me an email at girlminiaturegames@gmail.com. It's in the video descriptions usually. And if you guys don't know what that is, oh my God, Crimson Skies. So Crimson Skies, you might have played it actually on, here it is on Board Game Geek. I'll just show you guys. It was a FASA game. And FASA was the company that originally innovated BattleTech. So when they went tits up back in the 90s, this game was hex-based, a lot like BattleTech, so it was a fighter game. It's not dissimilar to modern Aeronautica Imperialis, but it was like Super Fighters. So if any of you guys played, oh my God, I'm going to make another reference, 1942, the arcade game. If you ever played games like this, imagine a version of that is, yeah, this old ass game. I love this game so much. I played this game endlessly. So if you never played a game like this, these were like top down. This is a very famous type of arcade game in the 80s, where you're basically playing a top down like shooter. And it looked a little something like this. Yeah, there we go. This type of game was an incredibly popular video game style, kind of based on like the what is it, Space Invaders. Stuff would kind of come from above and drop down on you, and you'd go across and like shoot them and stuff like that. Imagine Crimson Skies is the miniature game of 1942. It was around in the 80s and 90s when, I think it was a 90s game actually, because it came out after BattleTech. And when FASA went tits up, it got bought by Topps, like all the other stuff did. And is under the license. And so it was this chat's just popping off with like 1942 is the GOAT. Everybody loved 1942. It's a classic, and it's been imitated a million times, this style of game. But Crimson Skies is literally like a miniature game version of this. So you can see it's got all kinds of planes flying around. The original version was played with cardboard cutouts. There are miniatures. So you can see here some of the miniature game miniatures. And again, they're like late 80s, early 90s miniatures, so they're not great. I did love the clear propellers, like to try and give the impression of a propeller going super fast. So yeah, and there's the air action, rules of air combat. And it did have a video game, I think in the early 2000s. It was an original Xbox game. And then it got there's some of the medals. And then it got a clicky game too. And the clicky game, man, some of the stuff on here is very nicely painted. There's some good stuff. Board Game Geek isn't often the place for the pictures to come through, but you can see here the hex maps. They were very much like BattleTech's maps. The plane was very much a BattleTech thing, right? So like stuff would land on you, your planes would get all shot up. And then expanded with crazy shit like Zeppelins, right? So like all kinds of weird, crazy stuff they got out of the game over time. And then, yeah, it went into, these are the modern ones. Man, they put everything in here. Yeah, but there's the planes. So you can see it's very much like if you like the BattleTech world of like filling in circles, man, that is that to a game. So it's like a steampunk ish, but like in like a biplane era. So you're thinking like turn of the century, World War One, but like super biplanes with jet engines and all kinds of cool shit. And yeah, it was also, I'm pretty sure it was also an Xbox game. Let me just see if I can find it. High Road to Revenge. That was it. Crimson Skies, a High Road to Revenge. Oh my God, look at this. Absolute bullshit. This is the height of the original Xbox. It got a 7.5 out of 10, 88% on GameFAQs. This is a whole ass schmozzle right here. But yeah, this looks like it's trying to be Uncharted. You know what I mean? Except it's definitely not Uncharted. It wasn't bad. I enjoyed it. I played this game. It came out around the same time as the first Mech Assault game, which was the BattleTech game, where you played as like a mercenary in the clans. Or I can't remember. You're a clan mercenary or something like that. But anyway, there was a weird period in like 2000 to 2005 where failed miniature games were being turned into video games because the companies had collapsed and their IPs had gone up for sale. And so video game companies were buying these really cheap IPs and then making video games out of them and like preying on the nostalgia of like the 80s and 90s, being like, remember Crimson Skies? And they were pretty successful. Like the Mech Assault video game was really successful. It also had one of the first online multiplayers. I remember playing MechWarrior on my Xbox online, on like the original Xbox Live, which is like a crazy thing. And then Gizmathway says, such great lore they created around it. Crimson Eagles is a great mashup of Crimson Skies and Canvas Eagles. Adds elevation. Oh, interesting. Okay. And then Master Viper says, that was force feedback joystick days. Shit, I forgot about that. Interview says, Crimson Skies, I have only known as the original Xbox games. I didn't know it was a board game. Yeah, man, like that's actually, it's interesting because that era of games is worth digging into for you, because like it really is a time when a lot of failed tabletop companies had their IPs gobbled up and then skinned over video games, because video games were just kind of in-home, like really starting to compete with the PC. So yeah, Crimson Skies is one of the like 14 original Xbox games that is compatible with the Series X. Why? Who can say? Is it really? Probably sales. It was probably just that popular because it's honestly a good flight simulator style game, and there's not a lot of those left. Like TIE Fighter and those flying era video games were a whole vibe, and they've kind of gone away. There's not so many flight games anymore. Like remember like Star Fox and like that era of like when those flying games kind of blew up. Gizmo says so many great games came out of Old Facet. It really is stunning. I mean, it was more of a co-op, like a gaming co-op of designers than it was like a corporation. You know what I mean? So even though it was a corporation, it was a run a little bit more like a biker gang, which is probably ultimately why it failed. But yeah, that's why you had all these kind of really different titles kind of working off the same idea. And then Ryan says, could it be even just down to it being a simple port over? Yeah, it could be it too. Mike says, if they could do a computer game like they did with the Harebrained Schemes version of BattleTech, that would be amazing for me. I remember playing Crimson Skies at the Game Store. Of course you did. And then Happy Hungry Sleepy says, I think we are all old friends. That is a great observation. That is pretty much what it's like to be in the GMG Patreon and part of the GMG community. Is like we're just a bunch of people who are all born around the same time, reminiscing about shit that like one of us will remember something that 80% of us have forgotten about, and everyone will pop off, and our hyperfixation, whatever our neurodivergence is, kicks in, and then we all obsess over it for 6 months until the next thing happens. That's pretty much what GMG is built on. as far as what all of our shared mental illnesses are. So yeah, we're coming up on an hour. So let's talk about the rest of this week. So I have project work for the rest of this week. I want to get like I said, I want to get the last 4 miniatures or last 6 miniatures done for this hegemony army, because I know Ben and Sarah will come back and Ben's going to be painting. So I want to have a different army list ready for that. And then I want to get the airbrushing and like base coats done on that. I've forgotten the name of it already. Whatever the undead elves are as well for Warcraft. So I have a second army so we can change some things up. And that means that like you're going to see the first game of that Warcraft stuff on Friday, because we can talk about the coming up stuff now. And I'm going to go every other week Warcrow and Infinity, because it'll just be Corvus Belli on Fridays. And that way, Corvus Belli fans will get something every week, basically. And I don't want people to wait too long, right? So like if I did like all the Warcrow at once, it would just be nothing but Warcrow, and Infinity players couldn't see anything. So we'll just go back and forth. And Infinity players get the weekly Tactical Awareness podcast on top of that too. So there'll be plenty for them. So that's thing number 1. Thing number 2, can't talk about. Thing number 3 is Fallout, because I've got the new Raider sprues for the Fallout Factions gameplay, because I want to have these ready and at least built this week, so that when Jay comes in next, we can play some Fallout, because I don't know when he's going to be around, but hopefully we'll be able to get together on Thursday or something like that, coming up in the next few weeks. And I think that's it for my project work. As far as videos, I already said Warcraft on Friday. You guys have the Indie Hour on Dead Gods, which is a really fun, like ultra streamlined skirmish game. It's like a hashtag 28 style game. So if you're into that Blanchitsu 28 style stuff, this is very much like what you can do with a micro game. And it's pay what you want. So you can go download it for free, or throw them $1 if you want. Toss a coin to your Witcher for that one. We'll be recording the Indie Hour on Wednesday for the new episode. I'm going to post, if you're a patron and you're watching this right now, I'll be posting the poll for this week's Indie Hour. And I got a couple games from last time that I want to post up that will be new. So there will be some new stuff on there for you guys to check out. What else is on Thursday? Oh, we have 3 spear tips coming out the next little while too, in preparation for hopefully next month's new launch of the new season for Spearhead, which will be fun as well. And then what am I recording this week? I got that. Oh, 1490 Doom. I'm going to be panning up some 1490 Doom stuff as well. Probably in between the remaining hegemony stuff and the whatchamacallit, because I'm just going to do the airbrushing at the same time for the undead stuff. I won't start it yet. I'm just going to get it all like ready to go. So much of like getting projects done is the prep work. While I'm on a roll getting the prep work done, while I understand what the game is, it's so much easier. Oh, and I got to finish my 2, I have to finish my 2, I lost it. My 3 new full spectrum dominance guys, because I did airbrush them all. Like this is what I do. I get things airbrushed and then they sit, and I have to get them painted. I'm gonna get those painted too, so that when Bob comes back, we can play our next couple of full spectrum dominance games. Jonathan Schmidt says, any Legions Imperialis videos upcoming? How about Steel Rift while we're talking epic scale? I got nothing booked right now, but I'm sure things will happen soon in the future. And we've got like a bunch of stuff coming up this summer because people start to trickle in. Obviously, new Horus Heresy announcements got us excited about Horus Heresy, so I'll be working on that. And we'll probably, if we do Horus Heresy, I'll probably side by side it with Legions Imperialis, because all of my Legions Imperialis armies also exist in Horus Heresy. And we can just go side by side and back and forth, which would be fun to do. Or maybe I'll just play Horus Heresy in Legions Imperialis scale. Imagine if I did that and converted all to centimeters. What a fucking nightmare that would be. Could you imagine? I could play the biggest Legions Imperialis game of all time, just or Horus Heresy game of all time, just in Legions Imperialis scale, and blow people's minds. So yeah, that's it. I think we are done. Say goodbye to everybody in the chat and see what else they're saying before we finish up. Mike Grimshaw says, nope, he already answered that one. Ryan says, Dunphy says, we're all a bunch of nerds with varying degrees of red hair. And then Don Fox says, do you still have hair? And then Jay says, it's only great if you don't shave it off. You guys are hilarious. What else we got? Jordan Wiseman had his hands in so many great games. Battletech, Shadowrun, Crimson Skies, MechWarrior, Dark Age. Raincoat Spare says, looking forward to Fallout. Me too. And then Ryan says, I also airbrush stuff and then leave it for way too long afterwards. Yeah, but then I don't forget about it. Raincoat Spare says, I'm ambivalent about the new Horus Heresy. That's fair. And Bryce Kingsman said, Dystopian Wars. We've got the starter set all painted up, and that's as far as we've gotten so far, but I'm sure Bob and I will come back to it because we've got all the stuff from the starter painted off and we finished that. And then MMB 2020-2213 says, I started collecting a small force of Chaos Space Marines so I could play Space Crusade in 2nd edition, only for it to become a full-size army. That is how it happens, man. When you start collecting stuff, especially when it's an old edition of stuff or like older miniatures, it can go off the rails real fast because you hyperfixate and you're like, ooh, I need that guy. Ooh, I need that guy. Ooh, I need that guy. My 2nd edition Tyranid army is exactly in that boat where I've got a bag of 2nd edition Tyranid stuff where I'm like, I'm going to get to you soon. But 2nd edition Tyranids were such a nightmare. I feel bad playing them almost because they were the one where like everyone got screwed playing them. The existential threat of the Tyranids was never more present in Warhammer than it was in 2nd edition 40k, where like just nothing worked. Sometimes like you'd have Genestealer infestations show up, like your vehicles would have monsters living inside them that would just kill you from the inside. They were such a nightmare. It was fantastic. Well, I hope you guys have a great week. I'll be busy recording some live stuff with the patrons on Wednesday. And then, yeah, some solo stuff on Thursday and Friday. And then more reviews on Saturday coming up. And, yeah, go check out that. If you're interested in, like, seeing the big boat turn, go check out that review of the the mission deck for Warhammer 40,000, because it's a real repudiation of 2,000 point games of Warhammer 40,000. All right, guys, I'll see you guys next week on Monday for the patrons, on Wednesday also for the patrons, and I'll see you guys next month. If you're not, tell them Ash, have a good night.